Good morning, everyone. It's really great to see so many of you joining us online this morning. Thank you for joining us. I'm Catherine Lai. I'm the Head of Advanced Manufacturing and Export Communities at the EMA. That's the Employers and Manufacturers Association. This morning's webinar brings together a panel of manufacturers from across the country who have recently participated in the Industry 4 Demonstration Network Program of Activity. We'll be featuring insights into key Industry 4 technologies and benefits of implementation, strategy, and leadership to drive change through investment in Industry 4 and the new skills required to support this transformation in the manufacturing industry. Now, knowing when and how to incorporate these new technologies into your business model isn't easy. And so the Industry 4 Demonstration Network is here to help you adapt. The Industry 4 Demonstration Network is a government initiative to help New Zealand businesses realise the benefits of a range of digital technologies that will enhance manufacturing performance, monitoring, output, and control. And Callaghan Innovation have teamed up with official partners Beca and the EMA to deliver this Industry 4 Demonstration Network, which consists of a mobile Industry 4 showcase, the network of Industry 4 site visits, and access to a smart factory to see cutting-edge technology in action. So special thanks this morning to our panelists, Laurie Kubiak, the CEO of Nortec Electronics, and Andrew Turner, the Director of Nortec Electronics based in Auckland, Derek Pinkerton, who is a Manufacturing Supply Chain Executive at Gallagher Group based in the Waikato, and Derek Manson, the Advanced Manufacturing Manager for PHI Innovations based in Invercargill, for joining today's panel. And also to Frank Phillips, the Advanced Manufacturing Manager at Almac Consulting, who is our Industry 4 delivery partner, who will lead the interview of our manufacturers who are leading the way in Industry 4. Now, I'm sure you're all pretty schooled up now on Zoom etiquette, but just a reminder to ensure your mobile devices are on silent and your audio is set to mute. Remember to unmute yourself through the Q&A should you be asking a question, but we welcome you to enter your questions into the Q&A chat, which you'll find in the bottom panel of the screen. And Frank will refer the question to the appropriate panelist. So without further ado, I'll now hand the baton across to you, Frank.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Catherine. Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. So yeah, a little bit different to our normal series of webinars, doing this as part of Tech Week, obviously. So we've got a whole range of different people and professionals in the audience and joining us. So yeah, very excited to do something a bit different. Obviously, great to have such a range of experience and knowledge on the panel as well. They're all companies that I've had the pleasure of working with firsthand over the past few years, and I've really enjoyed their company. So thanks again to everybody for joining, and we'll do some introductions in a moment. So yeah, just to finish off, a bit of housekeeping. As Catherine said, please ask questions through the Q&A at the bottom. It's a really good way to get involved. It's a really good way to make sure that I'm asking the right questions to the panelists as well. So yeah, be great to hear from you through that. In which case, let's get straight into it. We'll introduce our panelists in a second. Just a quick reminder, we're recording the session as well. So if there's any colleagues or anything that wanted to see this, couldn't join for any reason, there'll be a link to the recording coming through to you afterwards. So without further ado, let's start off with some introductions to our panelists, and we'll start with Nortec Electronics, and we'll start with Laurie Kubiak. Maybe you could give us a bit of an intro, Laurie, to yourself, and maybe a little bit of background on who Nortec are as well.
Sure. Thank you, Frank, and welcome everybody to the webinar. It's great to see so many people on. Nortec Electronics is based in Auckland, and we're a contract manufacturer predominantly. We've been going for 33 years, so we've been in this business a long time. I'll let Andrew Turner, who's the founder of Nortec, speak about some of the history in a moment. But you know, we've been in lean for a very long time, and our Industry 4 transformation is also very, very long standing. We work across quite a number of sectors. So we do everything from aerospace through defense, through marine, to light bars that you might see on trucks on the building site as you drive to work in the morning. So we cover lots and lots of sectors. And the important and interesting thing about that is, unlike a lot of people in the manufacturing space, particularly here in New Zealand, we're very high mix. We do a lot of production runs in a day for different customers, and the volumes of those runs can be quite small because we also do quite a bit of pre-production and prototyping work for customers as well. So that makes us a little bit unusual, but it also means that the Industry 4 techniques and methodologies are a very, very good fit for what we have to do day in and day out. So with that as introduction, I think I'll pass the baton over to Andrew, who founded Nortec 33 years ago.
Right, yeah, so I'm Andrew Turner. So I obviously started Nortec. I'm an electronics engineer by trade. Last year, Laurie came on board to help us grow and take the company to the next level. But yeah, Nortec's been going well for a number of years, primarily contract manufacturing, electronics, like Laurie said, but most people seem to remember us from the police days, because for 20 years we designed, manufactured, installed and looked after the New Zealand police fleet. We don't do that anymore, but we do still manufacture that range of equipment, which we predominantly export to Australia. But that gave us the background of designing equipment that was mission critical, not only manufacturing it, selling it, but supporting and servicing it nationwide and Australia. So we understand customers' problems pretty well when they talk about their own products, and designing for manufacture, making it efficiently so that we can be competitive with China, but we're more focused on quality and looking after our New Zealand customers. So that's a quick rundown. Being an engineer, I've obviously been interested in automation and the technology side of it, and that's where we've done a lot with the Industry 4, and just the whole business has been set up to be as automated and efficient as we possibly can. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, great introduction to Nortec there. Well, maybe we'll pass over to Derek Pinkerton at Gallagher. Maybe, Derek, you can give us a bit of insight to your role and Gallagher as a whole.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Frank. Yeah, as Frank said, Derek Pinkerton. I look after the manufacturing and supply chain for Gallagher Group. Been with Gallagher for, this is my 11th year, and yeah, really exciting. It's been an exciting journey, and it's just goes like that. So it's been great. Proudly fitter welder by trade, and sort of started in engineering and worked my way through. And I guess kind of halfway through my career, sort of started getting into a bit of lean, and that's kind of where I've sort of developed into sort of leadership roles. So it's been a great journey and a great place to start. So from Gallagher's point of view, yeah, we're a privately owned organisation. We celebrate our 85th birthday next year, so been around for a few days, and we export over 75% of our products to over 160 countries. We put about 10% of our revenue back into R&D. Sorry, it's raining pretty heavily here. Hopefully that's not interfering too much. Yeah, so big commitment in R&D. We're very, very vertically integrated. So, you know, from R&D through to tool design, through to injection molding, surface mount technology, final assembly. So, the stuff's done here on site, New Zealand. And like Nortec, very much, even though we've got our own product range, we're very much high mix, low volume manufacturer on the world scale. So, yeah, lots of SKUs, lots of product. We've got customer service centres in Melbourne, USA, Canada, UK, and the Netherlands. And we have 3 sites in New Zealand, 2 manufacturing sites, and 1 manufacturing site in Australia. We've got 2 divisions, so we're probably 85 years ago we started in farm equipment and machinery, and we moved to electric fencing, and that's probably what we're mostly known for. But that division now, animal management, has kind of widened and covers weighing, EID, water monitoring, and really farm management. So and in the 80s, we moved into security, and that's quite a big product range for us, and probably our biggest opportunity market. Moving into sort of access control and perimeter. That's about sort of people in buildings and how they enter, how they exit. So a lot of work in sort of government organisations, universities, casinos, mines. High perimeter, high security type products. So yeah, that's a little bit about us.
Wonderful. Thanks, Derek. Yeah, you'll see Gallagher's products and you may not know you see them all the time in terms of those security side of things. Often if you're in New Zealand and you're swiping yourself access into a building, it's Gallagher without really realizing. So yeah, that's just to kind of bring it to life a little bit. So wonderful. In that case, Derek Manson from Fire Innovation, Advanced Manufacturing Manager. I'll maybe bring you in. You want to give us a little bit of background to your role and to Fire Innovation as a whole, and what you guys do?
Yeah, thanks, Frank, and welcome everyone. Derek Manson from Fire Innovations, Advanced Manufacturing Manager here. Fire Innovations, this is Gareth and Melissa Dykes, who are the owners. This will be their 20th year this year of owning the company. And when they started back then, Gaz and Melissa, Gaz is a composites fiberglass tradesman, started off with one contract that he was doing for Stabicraft. So yeah, very small crew back then. Now 20 years later, we've got 25 staff here at the moment over 3 divisions. So the company does obviously still fiberglass, but obviously expanding more into the carbon fibers and Kevlars and the exotics. A lot of not only manufacturing of that, but also still doing repair sort of work. We used to have traditional shipwrights as well, doing a lot of work in the ports down south here. More of the traditional old skills, which is quite interesting. Industrial flooring, so as well. But then this is why my shirt is a different colour to my background. Fire Additive is a sub brand that we've created. So the 3D side of the business, and we mainly focus on additive manufacturing or 3D printing. We may have time to talk about what the difference is later on, but we'll call it 3D printing for now. And so we have commercial grade 3D printing equipment for manufacturing. Our main focus is on manufacturing rather than prototyping, but we do a lot of prototyping. SLS, SLA, DLP, and a host of post-processing options as well as 3D scanning on site, condition monitoring sort of work that we do for customers as well as reverse engineering, and we use it for our own QA purposes as well. And in-house design capabilities as well. So our customers, so we're based in Invercargill, and proudly so. So we're working right over the whole country, and the bulk of our customers are in the North Island. But with their digital workflows, it's not really that much of an issue. But yeah, so we're working in the aerospace, marine, medical, general manufacturing, industrial. Yeah, so we've got quite a wide spread on industries as well. So it's us.
Awesome. Thanks, Derek. Yeah, so we were down at FI under the network site visits banner this week, doing a bit of a site tour. So for some of you on the webinar, you may be familiar with network site visits, where we do some work on site with different organisations that's fully funded through Callaghan, and then we do a site tour to try and open up some of the things that company's learned, some case studies of technology that company's applied to a wider manufacturing audience. So we had it was quite a few people down at FI. We're certainly pushing over 30 people, I think, on site at FI on Wednesday, and it was brilliant to show off some of the additive side of things and some of the digital workflows and technology. So with that in mind, we'll probably stick with you, Derek, at FI, and maybe start off with a couple of questions to get the ball rolling around. Where are you as an organisation? Where would you say you're currently at with your Industry 4 journey, particularly on that additive side, and really keen to dive into some of those digital workflows as well you mentioned?
Yeah, so I feel like we're reasonably early into the process. Probably what's a wee bit different from us from other manufacturers is the equipment that we get. So when a 3D printer turns up, it's got a lot of inherent properties already, so it's already sitting there, and there's data's being generated flat out. So we're only 2 years ago when a bit over 2 years ago when the first machine sort of come in. all we were really focused about then was just building nice parts. We just wanted quality parts, and that's all we really cared about. And then not long after that, another machine comes along and another machine comes along, and still we're just focusing on how good can we get these parts. In the meantime, there's just this data being generated that we're not really using, right? So now, after going through the assessment with you as well, it's then realizing that, okay, all this information is just being generated. We need to be tapping into that, and that's now where we're at. So there's a software that's available in the additive world called Octane. It's designed to basically connect all your machines. So you've got all the data being gathered as all your operational parameters. But not only that, it's also designed to work in with the orders that you have coming through your workflow, so it can start to match all those the machine properties with the part as it goes through. And so now we're starting to develop a traceability ability. So that really wasn't on our radar when we first started. But now, especially you start getting customers like in aerospace and medical and all that, traceability is just massive. In fact, it's critical. So we have to have that ability, and you just simply can't do that manually. So when you get rejects, something pops out of that main batch, it's getting manufactured at a different time. How do you know that it's going to be done at the same, so all those sorts of things. So yeah, we're right at the infancy of just getting all that integrated, and we're just starting to see good results with that. But yeah, probably, early I'd say sort of where we're at.
Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah, I think you touched on a couple of key points there. I'll ask you a question about it a little bit later on, but it's almost the unknowns that come out of the journey. And like I say, I'll ask a question a bit later on. But there's often these things that emerge from where you didn't expect, where you did something or invested in a technology or a process for a particular reason, and all of a sudden that's given you some more capabilities that have become useful later on down the line, or you didn't even realize you were going to have originally. So I think there's some really interesting points to talk about that, the unknown value that comes out of this kind of stuff. So on a similar vein, then we'll jump to Derek Pinkerton at Gallagher. So in terms of your Industry 4 journey, Derek, where do you think you are at the moment in the kind of big picture? Especially, you've got a bit of a comparison to that lean and continuous improvement journey as well.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. So yeah, we started lean in 2009, and I think so we've been doing that for 12 odd years, and probably a little bit confused. I think looking back 12 months ago, even 24 months ago, there's a lot of technology out there. A lot of guys saying, "Hey, this is Industry 4 ready," and all this equipment and all this. It's created a whole lot of, where do I start? So I think that was confusion. But I think for us, similarly, it's probably so we're probably bouncing around the edges, really. I think it's relatively early days from a Industry 4 strategy point of view for us. But we've got a suite of equipment that's Industry 4 ready. However, they're not entirely connected across our manufacturing value streams. So we've got an MES system in place in our plastics factory, and we're planning and reporting, and it's really great. But it's not connected through a SCADA system or through a overall. It's quite siloed in its kind of architecture, I suppose.
Yeah.
We've just done a series assessment, which was great. We've got an appetite for change, and like I said, we didn't really know where to start. So this has really helped us. The series assessment really helped us connect the dots. We've started to focus on some of those 5 key KPIs that came out of the assessment. We're focusing on workforce efficiency and planning and scheduling effectiveness, workforce flexibility, and time to market and time to delivery were the sort of 5 key KPIs that we as a company kind of thought were for us. And we're looking at we've got a whole suite of KPIs that we look at, but we've tried to develop some lead indicators that feed into those KPIs. So, and I guess we're still working through our future state. We've got our current state, but we're still developing our vision, really. So, hopefully gives you a bit of an overview of where we've got. And I guess just to summarise, I suppose we've kind of got pockets of excellence across our manufacturing areas. So it's about that roadmap and then sort of connecting those dots. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a flavour of where we're at as an organisation.
Yeah, nice. Thanks, Derek. Yeah, I think just a couple of of pieces you picked out there. I think that siloed nature is something that, as we're growing organically, I see it in a lot of organisations where we've got a particular problem or opportunity, and we decide actually we could invest in some technology to help us resolve that or improve it. But often when we're kicking that journey off, it's done in a kind of point solution basis. Let's just kind of resolve that and resolve that. And that's absolutely fine. It's completely natural, but I think it's that awareness that can become a bigger picture and of a network of information and data that can allow a lot of things to happen. So I think that was a really good point. And you mentioned an Industry 4 strategy there as well, which is quite a term, digital transformation strategies, all these kind of things that you'll hear in manufacturing at the moment. We'll touch on that a little bit later on as well and get into what that actually means and what it looks like. But for now, maybe on that same theme for yourselves at Nortec, and Andrew, you might be best placed to answer this one around where Nortec are on their Industry 4 journey, and a little bit of that history around how have Nortec ended up being in a situation where they are quite mature in some of these technologies.
Yes, we probably started on the whole what you call Industry 4 before it was actually known to be Industry 4, with all the surface mount technology and the interconnection of all the machines and the production lines. So we were well down that track. So as Industry 4 has probably evolved into more connectivity to everything, from the ERP system, we're probably well ahead of the game, understood it, could see the benefits, and we've gone further and further down that road, to the point now, as you know, Frank, from the Siri assessment we recently did, we're world class. So if you want to see world class and connectivity, we're a good place to talk to. The Industry 4 for us was that not only just your ERP system passing the information that connected to our stores, and we use robotic storage machines that then picks the product, goes to our SMT lines. We've even integrated the laser marking right the way through the SMT production to the AOI, the automatic optical inspection. So we're actually capturing not only how many products were made for a production run, but the actual time to make each product. Every one of them is barcoded with a unique serial number, complete traceability to every component, because we need that, like Derek was saying, for aerospace, but we now do it for everything. And then that's also picking up quality as well, so every defect gets tracked from that. Give you an idea of quality, we measure parts per million, so don't believe these 10% reject rates that you hear of. That doesn't happen in New Zealand. And it's really grown to capturing even the workers working on the final assembly lines and who's working on it, how long it's taking to make products, and feeding all of that data back. And I guess a key part of Industry 4 for us was a trip that Callaghan funded for a group of us to Singapore to look at Industry 4. And out of that, we came across, we were looking for an MES system because we were capturing all this data, but analyzing it at the end of the month, and it's too late. It's already happened. We needed it real time. So that's probably one of the key things that we got from that. And then it was late 2019 to early 2020, we put in the MES system, and we pretty much connected everything up on that now. So, yep, well ahead of the Industry 4, and can't say how much it will help automation and production facility.
Wonderful, thanks, Andrew. Yeah, I think just a couple of points that you mentioned there. The first one, the idea that Industry 4, I suppose, has almost got this this element of being a bit of a buzzword now. It's a bit of a marketing term potentially for some, for solution providers and things, and so we have to, I suppose, be a little bit careful. We use it as part of the demonstration network. We call it Industry 4 because I think it, as an umbrella term, it kind of captures everything we're trying to talk about and trying to I suppose bring to life for manufacturing in New Zealand. But we have to be a little bit careful around it. Like you say, some of these things have actually been around for a little while now, and it's an adoption thing. But there is also the exciting possibilities. And I think, Laurie, we were talking before the webinar. You mentioned some really interesting points around how it keeps you on your toes and keeps things exciting around what could we do next, because actually when we looked at this solution last year, it wasn't available, and all of a sudden now we can do it. I think that's quite exciting. So I don't know if you want to touch on that a little bit around your
I think
journey
you
in
stated
recent
it, though.
months.
Yeah, I think you've stated it, though. I mean, the technology never stays still, and it's always an open question for us here at Nortec, how close we can get to that edge as it travels. But the surprising effect of all that is it does make for a much more interesting place to work, because you're never going to get in a rut in this kind of environment. There's always something new to be working on, whether it's on the nuts and bolts of the production, some new technology, a new type of machine coming along, or your support services. So, one of the opportunities we have, just to round out that picture, is we're very well interconnected within the organization, as Andrew's just said. Our connectivity with the supply chain could be better, and that's not so much because of our level of maturity, it's because of theirs. So the challenge for us, or a challenge for us over the next couple of years, is how can we get our suppliers to integrate with our systems more closely, so that, for example, we can upload a forecast of demand to a supplier, and they just pipeline the components based on that forecast, which is refreshed in real time, let's say two or three times a week, so that we can get back to a more just-in-time world. And so those kind of questions, they're always very live for us, and it does keep the space really interesting.
Wonderful. Yeah, thanks, Laurie. I think that's a really good point around. We can kind of get sidetracked with Industry 4, and for those of you who've met me, I kind of quite strongly reiterate this on a regular basis, that Industry 4 isn't just what's going on the shop floor. We very much hone in on the what I call the sexy stuff. The stuff you can touch and feel that's actually happening, and machinery and equipment that's automating the process, and that's definitely a really important part of it, especially when, as you mentioned, Andrew, we've got to compete with low wage labour markets and things like that to keep things onshore in New Zealand and bring things back even. I think that's a really, really important point. But yeah, when we look outside that at the software and opportunities around demand planning and forecasting and things like that, the data analytics that we can do in that space now, the real-time connectivity with your supply chain, all of those things that are kind of, I suppose, a little bit hidden in the background. They're in software, and it's all about APIs and connectivity between customers and suppliers and so on. So I think having a broad view of what Industry 4 is quite important. And we've got a couple of questions coming through. Just again, I'll reiterate, we've got the Q&A function at the bottom of the of Zoom. If you just click on the Q&A down there, feel free to ask any questions. But a couple of questions that have come through the chat at the moment. One for Derek Manson at FI. Derek, we've just got a question around, we've got some interesting thoughts on that data gathering and the machine integration process. He was just really interested in what the software was that you were using there. If you could, I don't know if you could just clarify on that, and maybe a little bit more about how it works.
Yeah, so the software that we use is called Octon. So most of our machines are manufactured by a US company called 3D Systems. They've also purchased Octon recently. So it's definitely a solution that's tailored for the additive world. So basically it does several things. But the main thing is it connects all of our machines, and it monitors availability, capacities, etc. So on one side, and then the other side is that as orders come in, based on whatever parameters are put into that order, machine type, material type, and priority, it will then automatically start to gather builds together, and then automatically nest those builds and then queue them up. And then it knows, on those capacities and whatever other restrictions we've put on it about how it can flow through. But Octon was the name of it, and we've got another upfront system that we use currently called DigiFab still, which is our online system where people submit their jobs, get pricing feedback, etc., and submit the jobs, and that brings it into our workflow as well. So those two sort of work in tandem. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, thanks, Derek. And again, just touching on that horizontal integration is quite a nice segue there. Obviously completely intended, but that idea that people can interact with manufacturers directly now online. We're typically, we're used to e-commerce and jumping online and buying whether it's clothes or even online shopping for food and things like that. But actually, that whole methodology is moving into the manufacturing space as well. And I can jump on and order something with a CAD file from Phi really simply because of some of the technology they've invested in and with the workflows they've put in place. And that's removed a lot of the, I suppose, unnecessary administration and so on in the interim as well. So really streamline that process. So a really interesting one that Derek, again, at Phi, you might be able to answer or certainly give your thoughts on. A lot of equipment these days comes with a bit of a label on it saying Industry 4 ready or something along those lines. What's your thoughts on what makes a machine Industry 4 ready? It's just a question we've had coming through.
I don't know. It's the machine itself. I mean, you could put a sensor on anything. Like we've just got a new sandblaster, for instance, or automated sandblaster. But yeah, there's not a lot of information I really need out of it. But it's Industry 4. It's all connected and da da da. Well, I think what's more important is that gateway that we have with Octane that's pulling everything together. It's just making use of the right information. You can be overloaded with information, and quite frankly, a lot of it I couldn't care less about. So it's just using the right information at the right time. So I think that whether a machine is or isn't, to say you can put a sensor on it, and Octane does do that as well. We can literally put our own camera systems in, our own. We could have a load cell for material, put a sensor, and that could feed into it as well. So yeah, I don't. Personally, or from our point of view, that's not such a big deal. But we've got the big ticket items that are amazing and put out heaps. But I think the areas that we struggle with the most is in the additive world is the material side. The way the material's consumed and the way it has to be separated after printing, and your waste and how all that gets measured and captured and therefore put back into your ERP and all that. That's actually more important to us now than what the machine's actually telling us. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks, Derek. Yeah, I think a really good point around Industry 4 ready. Like I say, it's kind of got a little bit of that buzzword about it, but fundamentally it's about that connectivity and the capability for it to connect. But the thing to remember is, it doesn't have to be new equipment. I think is the point to stress. We can retrofit things to get information off them relatively easily these days, depending on what that might be. You might be interested in preventative maintenance and monitoring the performance of equipment, and therefore wanting to predict when something's going to fail and things like that. So that can all be retrofitted these days relatively inexpensively to be able to avoid, I suppose, investment necessarily in new equipment. So wonderful. I think we've covered off quite a few topics there. So we'll move on. We'll move on to the next one. I'll maybe go back to Derek at Gallagher. Just wondered if you wanted to talk a little bit around a technology in particular, or something that's kind of set you apart or helped accelerate your Industry 4 journey, something you want to kind of put a spotlight on.
Yeah, sure. I've probably got two examples. One which is probably the supply chain area, which I think is probably worth talking about.
Yep.
And this is, there's been, I guess everyone's aware of the global supply chain disruptions and the lack of availability of product, raw materials, toilet paper, that sort of stuff. But one for us as we went through this disruption with our ERP system for purchasing components, what we found is we were struggling to get that real visibility. So you'd have to jump into a screen to go to another screen to go to another screen, and then take that information, consolidate it, go onto another screen for another part, and it was really a really slow process. So what we've done is we're fortunate we've got quite a big IS team on site, and we've got some data scientists. We put together a Power BI dashboard that gave us real visibility, sort of took 24 months out on our up and coming shorts. What I mean by that is what we were going to run out of for at our component level. So real easy visual management dashboard, which has been amazing. It's really changed the way the procurement team work. But we've now overlaid that with scenario analysis. So effectively, when you buy electronic components, and at the moment you can't get everything you ask for, it's called allocation. So they allocate amount of product to the market. So you might order 1,000, and they might say, no, you can only have 500. So, and then you might not even get those 500. So that's called allocation. And what we're doing is we're monitoring our suppliers on their delivery, and we can put in, okay, supplier A is only delivering 20% or 80%. We could put those percentages into the what if scenario dashboard and really predict what our die fault, our delivery performance might be like in terms of the components. And so that's been a real game changer for us. It's been a fundamental step change. I guess the other example I wanted to talk about was the fact that putting in an automated system, vertical molding machines with 6-axis robots and a cellular manufacturing approach has really enabled us to bring back some product that we were making in Asia. So not just the technology, but the fact that we could bring it back and be competitive. So that's really the second example I wanted to sort of share.
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic, Derek. Two really good examples showing, I suppose, the shop floor automation side of Industry 4, and again, what that's allowed you to do. And I think certainly the reason that I'm involved in this industry and doing what I'm doing is because I'm really, I suppose, passionate around how can we bring stuff back and keep things in New Zealand and securing that supply chain, which obviously has come into razor sharp focus over the past couple of years. And so I think that other example of being able to plan effectively in that supply chain piece, again, not a piece of hardware I can go and touch and feel, but a really important part of the process. And you can have all the automation in the world in your process. If you haven't got the parts to put on the boards and so on to make your components, then you're going to be struggling. So I think having that spread of investment, and I think that's quite interesting. We've had a question come through from Fleur. Good to see you, Fleur. Good to have you on. She's just asked a question around, and maybe I can ask this to the whole group. If you've got any thoughts around how do you make your decisions in terms of go, no-go decisions around investment in technology? Do you have a process? And how do you, I suppose, predict the future financial benefits of that investment as well in terms of that return on investment? I don't know if anybody's got any thoughts on that.
Here at Nortec, we've been very client-led. We try to keep a bit ahead of the clients, and we're their technical experts, if you will. So we're here to solve problems for them. We do in the majority of cases the design for manufacture of their products, and so we're also, you might say, in charge of the efficiency journey as well. So we try and get ahead of that and work out what piece of equipment will benefit them in the future and get ahead of that curve. Or if it's a question of scale, what will give them the scale of production they need. The shift we're seeing at the moment is we're trying to be more strategic about the sectors that we enter, the people that we work for, and the sectors in which they operate. And when you decide to enter a new sector, you need to think about what the standards are in that sector and what that means for your own plant and equipment. And so that's something that we're going through at the moment for our target sectors. We're pretty well set up for that, though. The other question you asked is, how you work out the return on investment. I mean, we don't do anything flash. It's a straightforward business case. What's the payback? What kind of return can we, what kind of volume do we have to put across it to give it the return that we would need? So nothing very elaborate there. Don't know if you want to add anything to that, Andrew.
Yeah, I can add to that because one of the biggest pieces of equipment that sort of comes to mind there was AOI, so automated optical inspection. So these machines, every panel of circuit boards that comes out, they're checking every component's the right component, right way around, not offset, skewed, missing. But they also check every solder joint. There's multiple checks on a solder joint, looking at the shape of the fillet. Is there enough solder? No solder shorts, no solder balls. So they're doing a lot of work. They have 10 micron cameras and they do this in seconds. So pretty powerful machines. But years ago, we have 3 production lines. We used to have a person per production line picking up any defects, checking boards. With the AOI, it's fully automated. And our total rework time now is about 2 hours about a month. So about 2 hours total a month of doing any rework on any reject boards we pick up. And you've got to bear in mind, we're running typically 12 production runs a day of different products. So it's a very high mix. It can be 10 off, but it can also be thousands off. So there's a lot of product going through, fully inspected, automated, and we can pick up any defect at that point and fix it before we end up with 1,000 boards that we're able to pick up and rework. So huge leap in technology. And with the interconnectivity, we're seeing every defect as it occurs. And if we get 2 or 3 in a row, it will actually stop and basically tell you what you need to look at. And that's where it's leading into that artificial intelligence now to tell you what you need to adjust.
I think that's really interesting, Andrew. That closed loop piece, I think, is really important around return on investment in Industry 4. I talk about it quite a lot. Of, we've got all this information now visible to us, or we're getting some diagnostics on our production. That piece of equipment may only really return an effective, or give you an effective return on investment if you take that information and do something with it. So, like you said, you've transitioned now into a really low quantity of rework. And that's not just a product of the fact that you've bought the machine. Obviously, your production engineering team have taken all that information, and it's given you a lot more visibility of what's happening right down at the detailed level, and they've been able to make adjustments and change things as appropriate to get rid of those reworks. So I think it's that closed loop system that allows you to justify return on investment rather than necessarily buy this piece of equipment and it's going to do X for me. There's almost an expectation that we need to go and work with the data that we get back from that to make it work. So yeah, really interesting question, Fleur. Thanks for that. I think it's something that everybody's kind of battling with, but it was interesting. I think Laurie summed it up quite nicely that actually, with some of these business cases, just because it's an Industry 4 or smarter piece of technology doesn't necessarily change the way we need to put the justification of the business case together, right? Some of those fundamentals that we can fall back on in terms of what we've been doing for capital investment for years and years. So yeah, I think that's a good a bit of investigation into that. So just going through my questions, interested to hear from people around what the biggest challenges. So maybe if we'll start again with yourself, Andrew. I think it'd be quite interesting to hear from your perspective, with a fairly long history going back into Industry 4. What's been the biggest challenge for you in terms of, I suppose, adopting it and integrating it into the business?
Yeah, well, we certainly adopted it. There was no issue at all. And like Laurie said before, it's mainly the supply chain. They're not up to speed yet. The electronic data interchange isn't there, or you've got to spend a lot of money to make it work, and a lot of backwards and forwards making it work. And then not all the suppliers are on the same system. So there is an international standard. There are some standards, but we don't seem to be adopting that. That's probably been the hardest part of it. But we are making headway. And I think they're learning as well that the more they do, the more this gets automated, especially in the worldwide component shortage world now. That's just changed the whole landscape, isn't it?
Yeah. That's interesting, Andrew. Derek at Gallagher, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on the similar lines around those challenges?
Yeah, I think the challenges for us, reflect on this, it's probably been more around, the initial, like I said, the initial knowing where to start, and we probably didn't know. We knew we were doing lots of things before anyway, but I think the thing around adopting some of that technology is really for us, it's been sort of conflicting resources and priorities. So there's so many demands across the business around change and about continuous improvement, and there's only so much resource that can actually execute on that. So I think it's really been that's probably been one of the biggest challenges for us, is that we're all ambitious. We all want to do things, we want to improve, but you can be constrained by resource.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point, isn't it? There's especially in a company that's got a good culture around continuous improvement. Everybody's vying for some resource to implement their improvements in their projects. So yeah, I think it's a really valid point in terms of some of those challenges. It's interesting to hear, around what you were saying, Derek, as well, around that where to start. And I think maybe just worth taking a second. We've touched on this thing called the SIRI assessment a couple of times, and the network of site visits. So just expand on that briefly for a moment. So the network of site visits fits under this Industry 4 demonstration network. It's an opportunity for a fully funded assessment around Industry 4 adoption for manufacturers. So Nortec, Phi, Gallagher, all of the team that are on today have hopefully benefited from that process. You've heard a little bit about it, but it's all around helping companies to identify where they are right now in terms of current state with their digital adoption maturity, I suppose, and helps to prioritise what might the roadmap look like for that organisation going forward. in terms of where they might want to go and invest and spend a bit more time and resource in terms of what they're trying to achieve at a strategic level around their competitive advantage and their strategic goals. So that's the process, and is and it's a bit of give and take. So obviously the tours that I mentioned right at the start with Fire Innovation, we've got tours coming up at Gallagher as well in the near future, and obviously Nortec will be forming the basis of the Smart Factory showcase that's coming up in the near future as well. That give and take element is the manufacturers get this assessment, but also open their doors to show other manufacturers what they're up to. You know, some of the technologies we've talked about today are all things that are that are on show for people to come and see and hear more about. And now, fingers crossed, all of that's back on site and doing it in person as opposed to the virtual world that we had to live in for a little while doing some of those tours. So keep your eye on that. I'll give a bit of a summary at the end of those tours that we've got coming up and where you can go to register for those as well. So wonderful. Derek Manson, Fire Innovation, I just wondered if you wanted to give us your thoughts on what the most challenging thing has been around bringing in some of the technologies that you've brought in.
Yeah, well, for us, and when you look at overall of the business, so coming as a traditional manufacturing, we've got a lot of highly experienced tradesmen here, so very, very good with their hands and all that. But when we start talking about technology, there's actually a bit of a fear factor there for them. So we're probably been a wee bit light on our IT knowledge throughout the business. So when you start talking about the guys just look at these magic boxes, and so there's not this massive understanding, and so they're quite a little bit unsure about it, so therefore not really that keen to embrace it. They like the way they do things. They don't really want to be able to be doing this for 20 years. Amazing at what they do. Not that keen to let this machine take over, sort of thing. So that's been a bit of a challenge is getting that culture to change to accept it. It is happening, and what this is one of the surprises that come out is the cross pollination we're getting between the divisions now. And that's led on to on some new CNC gear and other areas that we probably weren't going to. So that's been one thing. And I think the other thing that's always surprised me when you get a new software or something done, it makes you feel like you're the only person in the world that's doing it. All of a sudden this has to be changed and this has to be tweaked. And all. We're not the only people in the world printing bloody parts. So why is this level of customization? So that always amazes me. So the system that we've put together, all of a sudden you're talking to these people, oh no, that's never been done before. Come on, I find that incredibly frustrating, is how much either systems haven't been thought out or that need to be changed for, and you feel like you're in this unique position. And then not only in this business, but in some of our previous roles in engineering companies and all that, it's the same thing. We're just cutting steel, welding it together. Why are we doing it that much different to anybody else? But here we are having to customize an ERP system massively to work. So those are the two sort of things that I think are quite challenging.
No, really, really valid points, Derek, especially that one around skills and training, right? It's a fundamental, it's part of the assessment process we go through, is to understand how well a company is really getting their workforce ready for when we bring in technologies in. So we'll maybe touch on that in a moment or two, but you mentioned there some of the unplanned sides of investing in technology and bringing that into the business. So really keen to hear from the rest of you around what unplanned or surprising outcomes came from investing in technology. So maybe Derek at Gallagher, maybe you could give us your thoughts. Is there anything that surprised you as a part of some of the investment you've done?
Yeah, probably another example outside of manufacturing, actually. Prior to COVID, we were able to travel and things were good. And in our security division, we do a lot of training. So our product, you have to be certified to install our product. So our channel partners have technicians that install our product in buildings. And so to do that, they had to be trained. And so we were training sort of 60 people a month across the globe. And our trainers would go on planes and they'd go all over the world. Obviously, COVID stopped that, and so we had to pivot, and we moved to an online training platform. And all of a sudden, we were training 1,000 people a month. And so just that enablement, and we made use of those people's time that were sitting in lockdown and things like that. But now what we've done is we've actually taken the learnings from the benefits from the classroom training and the benefits from the online training and kind of combined those and made a virtual classroom and just taken some of those benefits online and really just streamlined the process. So yeah, that's been I guess an intangible benefit that we sort of didn't know was going to happen. So
Yeah.
I guess it's not a manufacturing case, but something different.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's really insightful, right? That's a huge jump in terms of number of people that you can train and kind of
and just the well-being of the trainers. They're jumping, they're traveling, there's jet lag, there's all that. There's none of that now. So it's just that's another benefit. But
such a good point, I think, around that employee perspective on technology as well. And Derek, you mentioned it as well around some of the fear factor, but here you kind of, I suppose, another view of that is actually what it's done for some of Gallagher's employees there around their well-being and their and their productivity, right? So it's a bit of a win-win there. And Laurie, Andrew, I don't know if either of you got any thoughts around that. I suppose your employee interaction. What have you seen with your teams as you've introduced more and more technology? How's that changed their day-to-day and their experience at work?
I've got an answer to your original question, which is what's the surprising thing that came out of the technology? Been thinking about it while the other guys have been talking. The surprising thing for me is what a great marketing technique it is. This is actually our number one marketing technique. If we want to land a new customer, we give them a tour of the factory. And that will go one of two ways. It will either go completely over their head or their heads will explode and they say, this is just amazing. I've never seen anything like this. We can do this here in New Zealand. That's the kind of reaction. I see Derek and Invercargill nodding. So I'm seeing looks of recognition all around the virtual table. But it's a terrific marketing technique to have this stuff in-house and just take people and show it to them and just explain what they're looking at, the speeds the machine can reach, how many parts they can place a minute, get them to look at the AOI machine and see the resolution and the 360-degree magnified views. And it's just fantastic. It's marketing you couldn't buy. It really is. So that's been the really surprising thing that's come out of this for me. Now you had another question though. Sorry.
Sorry, Larry. I thought you were a bit there. I think that's really interesting to hear that. That's not one I was expecting to hear, so that's great as a bit of insight. But yeah, just coming back to that previous point around employee engagement and how your teams have, I suppose, adapted to new technologies. What's their experience been like of that, and any benefits, I suppose?
Yeah, well, it's good for them too because it gives them more. They also get to see all the data in real time as it's produced, as it's recorded. And so that gives them more control over what they're doing. And so they feel they have more agency. So their personal investment in their job is higher. So they're more dedicated, happier employees. I mean, we looked at this the other day, didn't we, Andrew? We're actually very low churn here at Nortec. And I think that's a large part of that actually you're not just a cog in the machine when you're operating in this kind of environment. You're responding to and using the data the same as anyone else, and you get rid of that division between sort of management and the shop floor where once upon a time in the bad old days, in the black and white days, there was this management division that sat in the corner of the business and that they made decisions based on data, and if you're on the floor you didn't question those decisions. This flips that. Everybody's involved in improving production for the customer, and it's enabled by these technologies. So that's what I'd say in response to that.
No, really interesting. Yeah, so I suppose the full spectrum there of employee views on technology. And I know, Andrew, you gave me a really good example previously of when you introduced the cobots and how that kind of works with your team. I don't know if you want to just talk about that a little bit and how that works for that part of the business.
Yeah, I thought this is leading right into the cobot part, isn't it? So cobots, the first thing people say, robots, cobots, they're going to take jobs away, taking our jobs. But it's quite the opposite. We'll use a robot wherever we can to automate a mundane task, and especially for quality control. So we've got some products One we make 4,000 a month. We used to put 5 screws in each one, so it's 20,000 screws a month you got to put in. And as you know, with plastics, you really want to torque them to the right torque setting. So you'll use a robot to do that job. The robot actually sits on the end of the production line. It takes the part, it assembles it, and it passes it back to QC. So the person now has been upskilled to doing QC type work, doing an inspection, final test type of work, rather than sitting there putting screws in all day. So they do start to see that the robots are a benefit. They're doing the mundane tasks. They're not really taking the jobs away. And it has upskilled the whole workforce. We've got a lot less production assembly staff and a lot more technicians and engineers now. Yeah, that's probably where it leads to.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think it's something that's talked about quite a lot, is the level of skills in those in your teams, and the type of jobs that are being made available, right? And like you say, ultimately, if we're able to secure manufacturing in New Zealand, then that's securing jobs, you know, not just in Nortec, but in the supply chain that feeds it and that Nortec is part of. So I think that's it's a really good point and really interesting, right? I think the way he summarised it to me was, you know, I've moved from doing doing the manual task to managing a robot that's doing it, you know, and it's given me a whole range of responsibilities and new parts of my job, which is quite, you know, interesting and exciting. So, you know, that's really good. So I'm just going to pause for a moment. We've got a few questions that have come in through the chat, so I'll just maybe pose a few of these to the group. So yeah, open to the whole panel, I suppose. The first one is Mike Atkins has asked around. We've talked a bit around supplier procurement engagement. What about post-factory export market and the value of some of the technology there? I don't know if any of you have got any views. I know we've talked a little bit about traceability and so on. If anybody's got any views around how technology is supporting in the supply chain after yourselves.
No, that's a great question. Not really. I think the only piece of technology that we're using is with our freight forwarders and just having the visibility through their software. So sort of going in and having that connectivity with them and seeing where our product is in the market as it's going through. But yeah, it's really sort of, for us, it's been sort of, you know, behind that rather than that sort of that side of it. Yeah, that makes sense.
No, I think you're right. I think just from some other examples that I've seen in recent history is the transition to smarter products. The idea of baking in some smarts to our actual products that we're making to get real-time feedback, very much the way your iPhone and things like that will be, you know, talking to Apple all the time around usage and how well the battery's being managed and all that kind of thing. You know, our products, and it might be only a handful of things. You might just be interested in the number of hours it's being used, what times of day is it being switched on, all those kind of things. That's really valuable data that's very hard to get hold of, particularly with consumer-based products. So I think where you've got a very distributed customer base, it's kind of hard to get that feedback. So I think in terms of post manufacturing, in terms of where that technology comes in, it's very much in that smart product world. I think is a good example, and that's also fed into changing business models around going to more service-based business models and things like that. And I won't go into it in too much detail, but it's definitely a really interesting topic for those that want to explore that a bit more. Things like Rolls-Royce going to selling flying hours and things like that for their aero engines. They're all really kind of classic examples that have been around for a few years, that if you're interested in how that works, are definitely ones to go and do a little bit more research on. So that's a really good question, Mike. Thanks for that. We've got a question in from David, who's talked around some of the automated systems we were talking about again in that supply chain world. He was wondering around, you know, have we kind of got any fail safes in that, you know, in terms of, Derek, you were talking around some of the predictive modelling you've kind of got going on in some of your Power BI dashboards. How's that gone in terms of you guys kind of, I suppose, signing yourselves over to the model and some of those scenarios that you generate? How's that gone with the team, and who's making the final decision, I suppose? Where's the human machine interaction there?
Yeah, how's it gone? I think I put my finger on it before, that it's fundamentally changed the way they work. they're so much more on the front foot, so much more proactive now. They're looking 2 years out, whereas before it was kind of, they were looking sort of 3 months out, 3 weeks out. And so it's really kind of made them become a bit more strategic in their approach. So, and yeah, it's just really changed their world. They kind of, they explained to us that, before this software and before this visibility, they used an analogy that they had a pot on the kettle on the stove, and the pot was boiling and it was just out of control. And now they've got it simmering; they've just got their control. So I think it's been a huge beneficial impact for them, stress-wise, well-being, all of that. So
That's
yeah.
good. Yeah, nice. Wonderful.
Before I add to that, Frank,
Yeah.
it's like anything, data in, rubbish in, rubbish out, but it's more data, but now you're getting more accurate data, and you're getting more accurate times, you're getting less wastage, you're getting better productivity. So I see the question, are you over ordering? No, if anything, you're actually getting more and more accurate. So you tend to be, not over ordering, but forecasting much further ahead. And we're all trying to get back to just in time, but that's the challenge at the moment. We just can't get enough components to meet the orders. But
Yeah.
no, you are more efficient. You're actually issuing the exact number you need. You know what your wastage will be from previous runs.
I think that's a really good point, actually, Andrew. I hadn't even thought about that, but you're right. With the technology coming in, the data that you're gathering around parts usage and quality and reworks and all that we've discussed is more accurate, which means that the data you're putting into these models and these systems is more accurate, and so the output is. So actually, if anything, we should be less concerned around the forecast we're putting together and that kind of thing than we have been previously. Yeah, it's a really, really good point, actually. Great. Okay, so a couple of other questions that have come in. Maybe one for yourself, Derek at FI. Somebody's asked around, can Industry 4 programs and investment be valuable for one-off and prototype companies as opposed to just kind of low volume manufacturing? So I suppose, what's your experience with that? Having done a bit of prototyping in your world.
Yeah, so as far as we're concerned, especially with the SLS machine, so the SLS is a nylon powder-based machine. You've got a build chamber of approximately 380, 460 in size. So we've just got this volume that we can manufacture with. So as we bring orders in, if there's one part or if there's 100 parts, we don't care. Just as long as all we actually care about is the efficiency that we manage to pack that volume with. So by using these systems to take either one part through or to take 100 parts through, or whether it's a digital inventory type scenario or whatever, it doesn't actually make a lot of difference to our production. So it's using those. Whereas you go back a bit, when you're trying to do it, when we very first started, put the first machine in, we were pricing off spreadsheets and we were, listing everything there. It was good old fashioned stuff. Then it was a pain, then it was, quite laborious. But so no, as far as we're concerned, it doesn't make a lot of difference to us. We're a mold free technology, and typically when we're putting a build through, we've got anywhere, depending on the size of them, 50 to 500 parts in one build, 13, 14, 15 different customers, all at the same time. So it's not a big deal in our world. No.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So some of that technology blurring the lines between prototyping and full-time production. Historically, a lot of organisations have got R&D prototype teams. They'll take a portion of capacity on a line to run a trial or something like that. Whereas some of the technologies you're talking around, and that's not just the physical additive side, it's also some of the software, by the sounds of it, that actually can treat it, almost makes it irrelevant whether it's a prototype or not to a degree. So that's interesting, around some of that technology. Again, a really good question from Sandy's come in as well around IT support, or IS, Derek, I know you call it at Gallagher. What's, again, probably a question open to the panel here around what's your thoughts on the necessity of having an internal IT team and those internal skills around connecting machines and extracting data from from systems. I wonder if anybody's got any thoughts on how that's developed over time and the necessity there.
I can certainly answer that one, yeah, because we connect basically all our machines. Whilst they've all got data connections back to a server, especially all the SMT machines, that's not really used, especially for the Industry 4 type MES. Because MES started off with the basic manufacturing of sort of plastics injection molding. That's where they sort of started to really get traction. Now we use that same type of technology for all our lines, but all you really need is the status of the machine and then a count every time a product comes out. And that's the basis of it. So then you're getting how many you've made, the cycle time, so you're getting are you on track or not? And from the status of the machine, you know, is it running, is it waiting, is it stopped, is it in setup? And that is then very quickly can be displayed visually, and you can see exactly how you're operating, are you on track? That leads then into your scheduling, your productivity, then you can add in the QA, the defects. So no, you don't need an IT expert for that. That's pretty simple. We use Aspect, which after traveling to Singapore and looking at what was available around the world, we found they were in West Auckland, a New Zealand company that designs and makes MES systems. I think Gallagher's might be using the same. I know Heller are using the same company. They weren't so much into the electronics, the higher tech manufacturing. We worked with them and they've developed more of that. And we've actually got one of our robots now is data connected, working with them on that to take it to that next level. But no, you only need the basic. I think like Derek said, one sensor will give you the initial, but if you can get the status of the machine and a count, that's all you really need.
Yeah, it's interesting actually. It sounds like there's a huge amount of complexity around this stuff, but actually when it comes down to it, it's only a handful of pieces of data that you really are interested in to drive your business forward, isn't it? So if you can just get some of those basics, and like I said previously, there's lots of opportunities around that retrofitting space now as well. So
sorry Frank, just to jump in. So for us being a small team, we 100% can't have IT specialists in house. So we've got an external guy that we use, but again, it's a very minimal use of him. Just as long as a few things are aligned on the server side and a few IP addresses are assigned here and there, and that's about it. Yeah.
No, that's a really good point, Derek. I think getting kind of a couple of different perspectives on that, and maybe I don't know, Derek at Gallagher, maybe you can give us a real snapshot as to, you've obviously got an internal IS team that you use. I know they've got some processes and systems around how they prioritise their work and things like that. It'd be great. Maybe you could give us a little bit of insight to how that works at Gallagher.
Yeah, it's a little bit slower, unfortunately, and it is one of those constraints. So, like I said, limited resource. It's a team of 50, but just there's other competing business priorities. And with the product we sell, we need to be a really high secure site. So there's a lot of things that go on around that can slow things down as well. So yeah, probably a little bit different for us, unfortunately. But in our production engineering teams, we've got the capability as well. So there does become a few conflicts around. They want to do something but aren't necessarily allowed to, and so it does create a bit of tension. So
yeah. No, that's interesting. Thanks, Derek. Also, just some clarity just coming through. Got quite a few questions still coming through on the chat. I think it's really important to mention, this webinar is one of a growing history and catalogue of webinars and lots of case studies that were typed up, kind of 2-3 page case studies on different technologies around New Zealand and who's using them. So all that's online at the industry4.govt.nz website. So really encourage people. So those that maybe we haven't covered your industry today, or you've got some kind of specific things that you're looking for, feel free to jump on that website. There's a whole resources section there with all the webinars, with all the case studies, and then there's the events part of that page as well, which I'll talk about towards the end of the webinar with regards to lots of other companies that maybe are more similar to some of the people in the audience today. You might want to go and see somebody that's in a similar industry or has got similar challenges to you, then feel free to jump on there and have a look. You might find some companies that are right up your street in terms of going to see. So that'd be that'd be my recommendation for maybe doing a bit more exploration, and obviously there's contact details on there if you want to get involved as well. So right, okay, so moving forward then, I think we touched right early on around this whole idea of Industry 4 strategy and I suppose planning investment. So keen to hear from around how we've gone about doing that, because a lot of organisations have got an overarching strategy. Maybe Laurie, you could give us some thoughts from Nortec around the strategy going forward and maybe next steps for Nortec and how you're planning that, I suppose, and making those decisions.
Yeah, this is something that we're really focusing on at the moment. I think I said quite a bit of it before, actually. So our traditional approach has been to get ahead of the customer and try and anticipate what they're going to be needing in the future, and we plan on that basis. We've extended that into the sort of sector space. So what sector should we be in, and how do we need to be shaped to be able to get those sectors? And what that's shown is there's some low-hanging fruit that we can be chasing. So we're quite it's not quite opportunistic, but it's very much on a fairly short strategy cycle. Of course, once you get when you get the customer, it can take a long time to bring them into full production, particularly if it's new products, and we do a lot of those. So yeah, it's really about anticipating their needs and aligning to that. That's what we do. The other piece is, the core technologies are moving as well. So just to give an example, wearables are now a thing in a way that they weren't even a few years ago, maybe 10 years ago. We see more opportunities coming up in that space, again, with quite bespoke, niche things. That's the sort of stuff that we do. But, putting sensors onto wearables and having, biometric feedback systems has applications in medicine and defense, all kinds of areas. And I think there's lots of opportunity to be captured in that space. So we think, I guess, across two strategic vectors. One is, what are the sectors we should be playing in, and what are the technologies enabling, and what can we capture within those?
Yeah, that's really interesting. Kind of, those two views. One is reacting almost to what's going on in the market, but the other is knowing that this technology is going to give us some capability and separate us. So you kind of got the proactive and reactive elements in there, which is interesting to hear. Derek at Fire, I don't know if you've got any thoughts around strategy and planning. I know you've obviously created a new brand with FI Additive recently. What's been your strategy around investing in technology and what to bring in and when?
I think for a start, unashamedly, it was literally build it and they will come was the first one. But then once that happened and they did come, it's that dialogue with your customer, and then it's okay. Once you get those relationships, you can actually start to feel where they're going and what they need. The biggest, one of the downsides of our digital workflow is, so somebody can just upload a file, get a part built, and they get the part back. Now, if we're not part of a conversation during that loop, then they might be incredibly dissatisfied with what that material was, for instance. And they just get the part and they go, oh, that's rubbish. And you don't have that opportunity to have a chat about it. Or initially, before they even make the order, with that many different machines and that many different material options and that, what's the application? What are you trying to do, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one downside that we obviously try to overcome with like the visit we had on Wednesday. MX coming up is shows like that are massively important. Meeting with visitors, just phone calls, whatever. But that's as much of it as anything. So if we don't get the chance to know what they're up to, what they're trying to apply it to, then it's hard for us to help. But going forward, there's certain industries that when you look at additive that definitely you're talking about high complexity parts, geometries that can't be made any other way. There's certain industries that benefit from those. And so you're definitely backing those industries as far as strategy goes. So then it's talking to those customers. Well, what's your material properties? Therefore, there's only certain machines or materials that it applies to, and then you go down that path. It's actually very, very easy in the additive world to get seduced by every new shiny thing under the sun. If you, quite frankly, you want one of everything. But that's just not reality, and it's certainly not the reality in New Zealand. So at some stage you've got to back a horse, and that has to be done with some level of okay, yeah, if we do this, therefore where's the application for it? So, and that has to come from the customer feedback. Yeah.
No, really good point. You saw that theme around customer, obviously coming through from both of you there around strategy, making sure it's targeted towards that. So, wonderful. So I think we've touched on strategy a little bit there. Derek, I don't know at Gallagher if you've got any thoughts around that strategy side and planning your investment, that kind of thing.
Yep. So from an investment, we have a kind of a capital roadmap that we use, and we use information in terms of sales and forecasts and kind of predictions around stretch budgets and stretch sales budgets. So we kind of plan our forecasting for our capital on our capital pipeline on stretch sales, because we need to be ahead and ready. If we plan the budget, we're going to be behind if they oversell. So we try to use sort of scenarios, and so we've got a good capital pipeline for equipment, for product lines, for production lines, for that sort of stuff. So that's quite a good model. The SIRI assessment is really has been great, and we're still working, like I said earlier, we're still working on our future state. I see that we need to go wider, and how do we connect that with our products and products in the market? How do we get that information back, those sensors and products, and put that in the future, help us with forecasting, could help us with knowing how far through the supply chain our products are. Are they still on the shelf, or are they actually in the field? So I think just that whole connectivity around that whole horizontal, I guess, supply chain end-to-end product, and how we integrate that back into our strategy, because we're also looking to build a new factory and extend it on site, but and how do we bring some of these elements, these gaps that we've identified out of our SIRI assessment into the new build? So there's a lot going on in that world for us. So
awesome. Yeah, thanks, Derek. I think a couple of points from that there, that idea of integrating it back into your strategy probably might have gone under the radar a bit there, but I think it's a really important point that some organisations struggle with, this idea of got my overall business strategy, and there's a temptation to say what's my industry 4 or my digitisation strategy as a separate entity. I think what I've seen work most effectively is when companies have got they've got a plan, a strategy around where they're going with technology, but actually that's all comes under that umbrella. Ultimately, any investment in that technology has got to deliver towards what the company's trying to do overall, with those kind of strategic goals. So I think that's really, really interesting. The other point I think you mentioned there as well was almost like a data-driven strategy. You're saying, we're taking these forecasts and these sales, and we're taking data to actually make bigger picture and strategic decisions around, do we increase our production in this area or this area, and therefore what technology we're going to invest in to do that. So I think that's quite, on theme, if you like, around this discussion with Industry 4 and using data. So really interesting. Great. We've just got a bit of a question come through from Kate. She's asking around if anybody's wants to talk around agile processes. Does anybody kind of use any of those agile principles and sprint and things like that in any of their business processes, whether that's in adopting technology or whether it's in day to day? She's just keen to hear where that comes into the mix with some of this.
Yep. We've started on our so in our kind of more of an R&D area, we've gone down the path of LFPD, which is lean for learning first product development, which is effectively lean for product development. Now we're moving into the agile space, and we're kind of rearranging our R&D teams into the business, closer to the customer, creating squads, centers of excellences, and kind of spun down teams to really help accelerate R&D and just create that connectedness to the customer and really understand what it is that we need to do for our products. So we're very early in the journey in terms of the agile phase, probably 6 to 9 months into that, but we've been doing learning first for a number of years now. So
wonderful. Yeah, thanks, Derek. I think that's good insight around some of that agility. I know I certainly see it as a strength of New Zealand, particularly being a nation of small business owners to a large degree, that agility that provides in terms of being able to adopt technologies, make decisions quickly, and make investments and reap the rewards, I suppose, is really valuable. And so, although maybe not technically sitting that agile, using some of those agile processes and so on in day to day, it's agility in terms of the size and decision making processes in a lot of New Zealand organisations is really, really valuable. Being able to move quickly, make the decision that that's happening, and then go and reap the rewards on the back of being able to move first. So I think that's something I certainly see on a regular basis as well. Wonderful. So we've got 10 minutes left of the webinar. Again, just wanted to reiterate, any more questions, feel free to fire them through the Q&A on Zoom, and we'll try and pitch them out to the panel and get some insights from where the panel's coming from. But I suppose it'd be nice just to kind of start to wrap up some thoughts around maybe a single piece of advice or a bit of a takeaway that you would give to any of the audience on the webinar today. So maybe Derek at Phi, maybe you might want to kick us off here around what would you say is the one thing or the couple of things that people should take away from today in terms of their journey with Industry 4 and adopting technology?
I think it's just start. And it doesn't matter at what level that is. It's like anytime you get something new come through, you got to get comfortable with it and all that. So it doesn't matter if it's a new software, if it's CAD design or whatever it is. You've got to have a familiarity with it. So if it doesn't matter what the scale is, just get it put in, just start getting used to it, and then you can grow. If you keep, because you fear it or you understand it, and you keep pushing it back, then and it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. So just start straight away. It doesn't matter what the scale is. Just I think that's the best thing you can do. I think you can overthink these things, but at least then if you've got a starting point, then at least you're starting to gather some data, and then with that data you can start to make decisions, etc., etc. So, but at some point you've just got to just embrace it, go.
Plunge. Yeah, great piece of advice, Derek. Yeah, I like it. Any other thoughts, maybe Andrew? You want to give us some thoughts on a takeaway for the audience?
Yeah, just exactly what Derek said. So we started by connecting the SMT machines first. They were easy. They were already fairly automated into the MES and collecting that data. Then we added the selective soldering, then we added the robots, then we added the QA, then we've added the more manual tasks. So you can connect all these things, but you just got to start and then you slowly add more. Then as you collect that data, and the key thing for us was probably displaying it visually. So like Laurie said, so everybody's then involved, they can see it. And there's no use giving them a target saying you've got to make 400 of these a day, and they're going, oh no, it'll take twice as much time to make that. When you can start measuring it and showing them the results. And if you get a breakdown, it shows that. If you've got setup, it shows all of that. So they can see the real data and see the results coming out of it. And it's not, there's no bullshit. It's accurate data and it's visual. Everybody can see it and act on it and work together.
Yeah, smashing. Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, Laurie, any thoughts to add to Andrew's views there on key takeaways or things you might do differently?
No, I think Andrew's covered it very well, and also Derek. Just start. Do something, and then do the next thing, and then do the thing after that, and before you know it, you'll be a 4.0 company. It's the first step that matters.
Nice, wonderful. And then Derek Piggerton, anything to add from your experience in all of this so far?
No, I agree. I think, and there's probably a lot of things you're doing that you didn't know that you were doing that are linked. Like even hearing the discussion today, to listen to Laurie and Andrew and Derek. I mean, there's things that are saying, oh yeah, we're doing that. You forget. So I think start. But also for us, I think doing that, take advantage of that SIRI assessment. I think that was. It's not a plug. It actually really valuable. Helped us create that roadmap. Really identify those gaps. So I thoroughly recommend that. What I do differently, I'd probably think about one of the things you measure on the elements of the SIRI process is your talent readiness. So one of the mega trends at the moment is new workforce. So we've all got to retrain, and I think in your manufacturing careers, there's some statistics out there. You change you're up, you retrain 3 to 6 times in your career. So, it's an exciting place to start. Yeah, the 3 assessment's been really good.
Wonderful. Thanks, Derek. I really appreciate it. I mean, we've got through a hell of a lot of information there. We've got covered a huge amount of bases. I've still got some questions on my list that I'd be keen to get to, but just in the view of time, just a question that's come through from Greg on the chat there around this ecosystem of software, just whether it's something that anybody's had any experience with across the panel in terms of the challenges of integrating different pieces of software and building that up over time. There's obviously organic growth with these things, but also there's might be a necessity to make a step change at some point in terms of what you're interacting with. So anybody found any kind of or got any advice in that space around ecosystems and software and linking them together?
Yeah, that connectivity is always the big problem. I have to say, Aspect were really good. Being a local company, so we've got one PLC that connects to every machine, every piece of equipment, and converts the data into Aspect. And then, yes, you do need the API between that and the ERP system. That's the key link. But that shouldn't be too hard to do, and they do most of that. And these guys aren't charging what some of the other ones we saw around the world are charging. They're pretty reasonable on a monthly sort of fee. So probably well worth looking at that. That's the key part. Keep it simple. Your ERP system is where all that data is, and you've got to get the data from the ERP, and closing the loop is feeding the data back into the ERP at the end of it to say how long did that take and what did you actually use. So we've written some custom software that then feeds back into that to finalize the traceability part of it. But that's all we use really is our ERP system talking to Aspect, and then we've got some traceability that links it all back up. So it's not a big process.
Not trying to create a beast, I suppose, of lots of individual bits of software. It's what can we maximise in what each of those existing bits can do, so you don't have to integrate too much. And yeah,
I think one of the other benefits with Aspect we've got as well is that they're actually willing to adjust and adapt their software to work with us and New Zealand organisations. So I think that's a real benefit. We can make it work and suit for us or others that we can all benefit from. So it's really powerful.
Yeah, no, wonderful. I think I was going to come back to that local point. I think people are quite surprised with yourselves as panelists, with your organisations, some of the things we're doing in New Zealand, and it's the same with the rest of the industry force space. There is a lot of opportunity out there. There's a lot of solution providers in New Zealand willing to come and work in a Kiwi way, if you like, and come and have a chat and work out what's the best thing for this organisation. How can we do this in a good way? So I would stress that there's not a need to have to go abroad with these things. We have got the skills and capabilities in New Zealand, and that'll be shown at the MX show 31st of May to the 2nd of June. I know a lot of our panelists are going to be there and going to have stands there. So if you found anything particularly interesting or intriguing, you want to ask some more questions, show that's in Auckland, like I say, end of May, start of June, definitely worth getting yourself along to that to come and have a look. I'll be there as well, so looking forward to chatting to a few of the people in the audience today and see what they thought of the webinar. So in that case, I've just got a couple of slides to throw up on the screen, just to talk a little bit around what's coming up in terms of events. I've mentioned a few events so far already with through the webinar. So through the demonstration network and the network of site visits, we've got these opportunities coming up. So you can see we're all over the country over the next few months, going to different organisations. These are all organisations that have been through the network of site visits and had that SIRI assessment done. So there's a couple of questions coming through about the SIRI assessment on the chat, and very kindly Lydia's put in the chat a link to some more information. So if you want any more information, it's just there on that industry4.govt. So have a look. If there's something in your local area, come down. The Red Steel one in Hawke's Bay is just before the Matariki weekend. So deliberately put on the Thursday if anybody fancies a bit of a business trip and a long weekend down to Hawke's Bay. But obviously welcome to come along to any of those. It'd be really great to see you. And we'll be talking about technologies, Industry 4, and an opportunity to ask some questions. And then with the Smart Factory Showcase. So this is an exciting announcement, I suppose, that we're launching in the next couple of months. The Smart Factory Showcase, which is actually with Laurie and Andrew and Nortec Electronics are a partner for that. So we're building an interactive and immersive experience that we can take around the country. So using technology to our benefit to be able to tour you guys through the Nortec process, some of the technologies they use and the advantages they've got from that. Lots of interviews with different people from different roles, and looking at some of the technology in plenty of detail using a digital twin. So really exciting opportunity. Again, you'll be able to sign up and get some more information on that for the launch in July. So we'll be getting around the country over the next couple of years to all the major centres. So really exciting opportunities, lots of support available out there. Do get in touch and get involved. And last thing to say really is a massive thank you to our panelists. You've all been fantastic. Thanks for adapting to all the questions I've thrown at you and from the audience. Yeah, really appreciate you coming on and spending your time with us. So in that case, we'll wrap it up there, and yeah, look forward to seeing and hearing from most of you in the near future and at MX.